Not everybody should have a podcast. Not everybody needs to go buy a microphone and sit down and talk to themselves and then record it for the whole world to hear. And after 2.5, almost 3 years, I have come to the conclusion that I'm one of those people. So welcome back to the Fun on Weekdays podcast for one of my very last episodes, potentially ever. I'm not really sure. I'm saying this is my last episode because I don't know if that means I'm going to come back in 2 months and I'm going to miss it when I stop doing these and be like, oh wait, just kidding, and do a quick little rebrand like I did this past year, or if I'm just actually going to be fully done with podcasting. But I figured I owed it to all the people who have tuned in every single week, or I guess every single episode since I very first started, to give you an explanation as to why I'm going to close this chapter of my life. And also, I'm not stopping Fun on Weekdays. I'm just going to be using this time that I typically take to record and Gabby's time that she typically takes to make graphics and the promotional stuff for these episodes onto something that I'm more passionate about, that aligns with my vision for what I want for my life and what I want for Fun on Weekdays more than what I'm doing currently. So let's take a trip down memory lane and go all the way back to Camden, my very first Rainy Street apartment in Austin, Texas. I was 23 years old and I've been doing social media for about a year now. And I was still working my corporate job at TikTok, and somebody had commented on one of my TikToks and said, Jenna, your life looks so fun. You make me want to move to Austin, Texas. One day I was walking on a work break to go grab a coffee at Royal Blue, and I picked up my phone and I made a video, and I was like, it's not the fact that I live in Austin. Hindsight, it definitely is. Living in a city that's walkable, is filled with young people. There's tons of activities. There's so much to do. Definitely plays a role in like how much fun you have in your surroundings, obviously. But I said, it's not the fact that I live here, but it's the fact that I make it a point every single day to do something that brings me joy. So if I don't like my life from 9 to 5 every single day when I'm working from home, not interacting with a single soul, and the day ends, I'm going to get out of my room and I'm going to go do something. Whether that means going to dinner with a friend, going on a Hinge date, going to a workout class, going to a concert. I always made it a point to do something every day that kind of offset the fact that I wasn't super passionate about my job and what I was doing for majority of my week. And at the very end of that video, I said, I like to call this having fun on weekdays. And I used that tagline and I just impulsively said, I'm going to start a podcast called Fun on Weekdays. I had no idea that that video was actually going to like blow up. It has, I don't know, maybe 100,000 likes or something, maybe more, maybe less, I'm not sure. And people loved that idea because I was just a normal corporate working girly who related to a lot of you guys who just feel like, oh my God, I'm living the same day over and over again. I need to get out of my house. I need to do something different, but I need the right people around me that can inspire me to do it, because it takes a lot of energy and effort to get out. Like it really does. And so then I was like, shoot, I actually have to start a podcast. So I went and I bought my first camera. It was a vlogging camera. And then I got a Blue Yeti microphone. I'm pretty sure my audio was absolute trash. I recorded my first episode on my apartment bed, and I didn't even have a tripod at this point. I just had my camera stacked up on like a bunch of books on the edge of my bed. So it wasn't even straight and it was wobbling the whole time. And then I recorded it on my voice memo app on my computer. I didn't know anything about editing podcasts at that time. I don't think I was working with Santino, who's my current editor now. So I just remember I was recording it, re-recording it, recording it, re-recording it on voice memo. And if I didn't like a part, I would just cut it out and redo it over and over again. And I remember that episode took me probably like 5 hours to film because I just couldn't get the words out the right way. I wanted to like tell my story of why I was starting the podcast in such a specific way and give context as like who I was. But to this day, that's still one of my very favorite episodes. And my mom will tell you the same thing. She loves that first episode. And for me to go back and listen to it, I'm sure I'll be like, oh my gosh, who is she? Because I really have grown so much through this podcast. And I'm so thankful for the people who have been along through it. I mean, I'm about to be 27 this fall, which is crazy. I'm living in a house now. I have a dog now. I'm in a relationship. When I first started the podcast, I was single, trying to figure things out with Connor. I'm like, does he like me or does he not like me? He's going to like me at some point. So I was trying to figure that out. I was still dating around a little bit, I guess. I was living in my apartment. I hadn't lived with him yet. And I just didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't realize at the time that I started that podcast that I was eventually going to quit my corporate job and focus on the podcast about 2 months later. And even when I did quit my job, it wasn't with the intention of like, I'm going to go full force on this podcast. I knew I was going to eventually look for another job, but I figured if I have the opportunity right now, why not just try and see where it goes? And if in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, I'm not feeling it, then I will go back to finding a corporate job or some other sort of job and it'll be fine. But what I didn't realize was that Fun on Weekdays became so much more than a podcast. Like so much more. I think even now, if you were to ask a random girl that knows about Fun on Weekdays what it is, she's probably not going to tell you about the podcast because the listenership versus the people that are in my Facebook groups or follow us on Instagram is very off. And in those few months that I had quit my job and I was dedicating my time towards social media and figuring out what I wanted to do, I also shared with you guys countless times that I felt so lost and directionless in my life. And I feel like I'm finally at this point where I can kind of see a pretty clear future. And I'm confident now to say that I don't think that the podcast is in it. Unfortunately, it's really bittersweet to recognize. But during that time, when I first started doing this, I felt like I had so many more stories to share. I felt like I was constantly out doing like really chaotic, spontaneous things. And I do still have a very fun-filled life, but just in a very different way. Girls would message me and I was making all of my friends through social media. They would message me that they were in Austin, they wanted to go out, or they wanted to grab coffee or get dinner or whatever. And I was always down to do something. And then it got to the point where I had started to find my own friends and I wanted to invest in building those friendships. And I was like, I can't meet up with you, but I can connect you to other girls. So that was the point that I decided to make the Facebook page. And so the main Fun on Weekdays Facebook page started as a way for girls to meet other girls across the country or in their city or wherever. Anyone was welcome to join. And you still are. If you're not on the Facebook page, join it. We have like 85,000 people, which is insane. Like that's actually crazy. And then from there, I noticed that a lot of people would talk about, oh, I'm going to this city. Do you have any travel recommendations? So then I started a travel Facebook page. That was a subgroup of Fun on Weekdays. Then I saw people were always trying to sell wedding guest dresses or bridal dresses, whatever. And so then I made a buy sell page. And then I saw girls were trying to find a roommate or they were trying to sublease their apartment. So I made a sublease roommate page. Then I found girls were trying to find jobs and they were trying to get career advice. And there were so many people posting about that. I'm like, let's make a career networking page so people can just join the different types of topics that they want to. And they don't have to have their entire feed filled with all of these like nonstop topics if they're not interested in it. And then from there, my most recent one that we started was the Fun on Weekdays matchmaking page where girls can basically post like any single friends that they have and try to set them up with people in the group. And it's crazy because I've had so many people who have reached out to me and said, I went on a date and it was amazing. Or there's a couple girls who messaged me that they're actually dating someone from the page and it's going like really well. So I'm like, if that's you out there and you're listening to this and you met someone through the page, please send me a wedding invite. I think that would be so insane to go to a wedding that was orchestrated by Fun on Weekdays. But then, so the Facebook pages kind of started to grow and I saw an opportunity to bring people together in real life because it's one thing for me to tell you fun things you should do during the week or how you can make new friends, but it's also another thing to actually create an environment where you feel welcome to go to an event alone, knowing that everyone else there is also there to make new friends. Because it's scary. It's somewhat uncomfortable. It's really, really difficult to do to put yourself out there. But I think a lot of women that listen to my podcast and are part of this group found a lot of comfort in the fact that, okay, they got to be somewhat normal, right? Like these people in these pages are somewhat vetted because if we all happen to follow this one girl who brought us all together, then we have somewhat similar interests. And so I think people found a lot of comfort in that. And Fun on Weekdays became this community group that people go to for pretty much anything that they need. I mean, our advice page is popping. We have advice submissions almost every like 10 minutes, maybe even more frequently than that. People are constantly posting in there. And then Mother's Day, May 12th. You have the rest of this week to figure out what you're going to get your mom for Mother's Day. And I know it can be hard to think of a gift that's as great as her, but there is no greater gift than the gift of a good night's sleep. I literally just placed the order. I'm sending my mom a pair of pajamas from Cozy Earth. When she was in town visiting for spring break a couple weeks, 2 months ago, I got a new pair of pajamas and she commented on them and she said that they were so cute and they're super, super soft. So I cannot think of a single pair of pajamas that my mom owns. When I think about living at home in Ohio, I've only ever seen her wear like t-shirts or tank tops to bed. So I'm going to spoil her with a really nice pair of pajamas for Mother's Day. Cozy Earth also has incredible, super, super soft bedding sets. You could get her a set of bedding. You can get her a new robe. You get her a pair of pajamas. If you use the code FUNOnWeekdays35, you'll get 35% off of your purchase. Do not forget, Mother's Day, May 12th. As I decided that I wanted to do more events to bring people together in person and not just be friends online, that started to grow a whole different idea of what people knew Fun on Weekdays as. And as we continued to travel last year, I've been doing events. My first event was like April 2022. After that, people would see that their friends were at this really cute event and they were making new girlfriends and they're enjoying a nice little cocktail. And then people click on the Fun on Weekdays tag and they're like, what is this? And then people started following our Instagram page. And I always knew that I wanted to start something. I had no idea it was going to start from a podcast. That's totally okay, but it's morphed into something so much bigger. And now I'll go to events and girls will be like, oh, what's your name? How do you know about this group? And I'll be like, girl, my name's Jenna and I started this group. And that's so crazy to me. And for that reason, I'm so proud that this has become something so much bigger than me and that I've been able to take a platform and turn it into something that's helping so many women. But I feel like the podcast has definitely lacked in the passion. And I mean, it's so obvious when I'm super passionate about something. I mean, you'll know. I don't shut up about it. I post about it nonstop. That you can tell how much love and thought goes into the things that I do that I'm really excited and passionate about. And I think that you could tell that. When I first started the podcast, you could probably feel that I had so much energy to put into it. And I'm sure if you've listened for a long time, you can probably feel that I've pulled back at some points. And as I've grown on social media, obviously there's more people looking at you. There's more people that have opinions. There's more criticism. And a lot of that started to get into my head and it started to filter the way that I would speak on this podcast because I became so fearful that people would take clips from the podcast, they'd edit things out and they'd morph it into a way that was saying something that I wasn't actually. Now, has that ever happened? No. I don't think I have anything to actually worry about, but it was always a thought in my head. I think over time, I definitely just became a lot more filtered. And I also became quite a bit more private with the things that I'm willing to share online. And for that reason, when I look back, I'm boring. When I think about the kind of content that I want to consume, if I'm listening to a podcast, I want to listen to Paige DeSorbo and Hannah Berner, like just chit chat. I could listen to them talk for hours and hours on end. I could listen to Jake Shane's podcast, every single one consecutively, and I would never get sick of it. And when I think about my podcast, I'm like, that is definitely not my vibe. When people come to listen to my podcast, it's just, I mean, there's really no theme. There's really no structure. I never really had a niche. And I used to think that not having a niche was like a superpower at the beginning because I'm like, well, everybody is multifaceted. To have just one single niche on social media is not even a true depiction of who you really are because why would I limit myself to only talking about makeup or only talking about fitness or only talking about faith or interior design or whatever? It's like the natural normal person has so many different interests. So why would I close off so many of my interests and limit myself to a very specific group of people instead of just making something that's all encompassing of exactly who I am? So that's exactly what I did with Fun on Weekdays. And you'll see I have some random ass episodes. Like I'll recap travel and then I'll have a how to heartbreak episode, or I'll talk about health and wellness and my fitness journey. And it's been all over the place. And I think another thing that I really struggled with is that because I'm doing this on my own, sometimes I just don't have anything I want to say. Sometimes I just know that the words that are coming out of my mouth don't really have any value. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm not making you laugh. It's just doing it to do it. And I don't want to do that anymore because I only want to do things that I'm proud of, that I'm passionate about. And I really hate to admit it, but the podcast is kind of doesn't really fall within those lines anymore. I do think it'd be really fun to have a co-host at some point, but I've struggled with like who? I literally don't even know. I would love to have all of my friends on every single episode, but you can only have 4 microphones. So how do you limit it? I don't know. But it took me a really long time to come to terms with the fact that I think the podcast has kind of reached its end because I felt so guilty that the thing that started Fun on Weekdays is the thing that I'm the least passionate about. Like, Fun on Weekdays started as a podcast, so how can you stop doing the podcast and still have fun on weekdays? Well, I guess in my mind, that's what I kept telling myself, and that's why I continued to do it week by week, even though I wasn't super proud of the things that I was creating and I wasn't promoting it. I mean, you'll see, I hardly ever promote my podcast. But once I realized that the time spent recording week by week could be better used towards something that is actually of more value towards you guys and the people who listen to this and want to go to events and want to meet new people, I started to feel less guilty about it. And that's why I've come to the conclusion that I just don't think podcasting is for me right now. And that might be in 2 years from now, I'll change my mind, or I might change my mind in 6 months. Who knows? But for right now, I think it is the end. I don't want anybody to think that I'm stopping the podcast because I'm too busy with Waterboy and I'm stopping what I love and my dreams to go and follow my boyfriend's dreams. That is definitely not the case. And I don't want that to be misinterpreted whatsoever. The only reason why I started working at Waterboy was because I felt like deep down, I knew I was ready for a change and I knew the podcast was coming to an end. And that's why I wanted to do something different to see if I enjoyed that more. And shocker, I do. And so I've been having so much fun doing their social media and making content in just a completely different way. Like it takes off so much pressure and so much weight off my shoulders to be able to make videos for other people and not overanalyze everything I'm doing. And I've just really, really enjoyed it. So if you're wondering, well, what the heck is going to happen to Fun on Weekdays? I will still be doing events. I'm going to focus on spending more time coordinating community events for you. So I may not be at all of the events, and I probably won't be at majority of them, but that's the only way that I can continue to do more of them. So we're relaunching the Fun on Weekdays Waterboy flavor collab actually this upcoming Monday. So mark your calendar, Monday, it'll be back in stock. And so for that, we're going to coordinate all these different Rumble boxing classes in different cities and send product out to all of these studios. Now, of course, I can't just travel around the country and go to every single class, so I probably won't be at them. But the goal is to have these smaller community events that are in city-specific places. And I talked about this at the beginning of the year that this was my goal, but I didn't really know how to achieve it. So I think cutting out the podcast and letting go of one of my responsibilities will give me more time and flexibility to do that. And then also we're starting to make actual physical products. So in July, we're launching a pickleball paddle, which is the cutest freaking thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm so excited for it. And then in the fall, well, later into the winter, we're launching planners. So as we start to make more tangible goods, I think it will make more sense for us to do events that are based around those goods. And I want it to be all encompassing of lifestyle products. So we'll still have events. We're getting more into like custom products that we'll be selling. And I also, one thing about a podcast is that like you can talk about your week and you can recap things, but I am a visual person. I want to watch you do it. I want to watch how you clean your couch. I want to watch you reorganize your closet. I don't want you to tell me that you did it. I want to watch you do it. I want the proof. And I've always wanted to start a YouTube. Again, I know nothing about editing or recording. I've tried to record so many vlogs on my camera, but the quality of the video is just absolutely horrible because I don't know how to do the settings. So I think I need to take some time to actually learn how to do that. But I've always wanted to start a YouTube. So I think instead of doing long format content as a podcast, I think it would be way more enjoyable for me to actually show you guys my life and not just talk about it. It's just like way more interesting to watch. So a goal of mine is to eventually start a YouTube, but I don't know exactly when that'll be. And also just thinking about my life in the next upcoming months, I'm so freaking busy. Connor and I are, well, actually, so next week I'm going to Charleston. We're hosting an event in Charleston with Fashion Pass, and tickets are free. You can RSVP if you're a Fashion Pass member, and you get to bring a +1. It's drinks and food are included, and they have some sort of gift bag. I don't know what it is, but some sort of gift bag. And yeah, at the end of the week, if there's any tickets available, we'll open it up for people to purchase tickets. But if you're not a Fashion Pass member, I have a code. This is also not an ad. I just like really want you guys to come. It's Jenna35, and you'll get $35 off your first month. So I put together a whole collection of clothes that I love for the spring and summer, and that'll be what the lookbook that's sent out to all the members for you to have inspo to wear to the event. So that's really exciting. So I'm going to Charleston, and then a day after that, well, actually, the day before we go to Charleston, we're relaunching the Waterboy. Then we're going to Charleston. Then right after that, Connor and I are going to Hawaii for like 8 days. I'm so excited. We're going to Maui. I don't know what we're doing yet. He's planning the trip because he's been there before, but I think we're going to do the whale watching tour. We might do the volcano tour. Although I don't know if you guys watched that Netflix documentary about the people who toured the volcano in, I think, the Netherlands or something, and it actually exploded and they all got severely burned and injured and some people died. So I'm very risk advert. Like, I don't want to jump off anything. I don't want to hike on a cliff, which is ironic because I was just at the Grand Canyon. Definitely found out hiking is not for me. So we might be doing that, and we're doing the road to Hana. Anyways, after Hawaii, we get back, and we have like 1 week in between that and then one of Connor's best friend's weddings. So we go to there for the first weekend of June. Then we have a week off, but then we're doing the Waterboy brand trip that I've been planning, and that will be in Cabo. It's called oh my fucking God. It's called Cabo with Customers. Why was that so hard to say? Cabo with Customers. So the idea behind that was like, okay, I've gone on a handful of brand trips. Connor's gone on a handful of brand trips. A lot of the feedback that we see, even myself as someone that views content, is like, okay, why are all the same influencers going on all the same brand trips? Like, share some of the wealth. Share some of the experience with the people who actually got the brand to that position. So I said, Connor and Mike, you guys need to do something different. You guys need to do something that like shows your appreciation for your customers. And also, it's amazing content. Like, who doesn't want to see normal ass people be just spoiled and on this like luxury vacation? And yeah, so we're doing that. I actually have to talk to the hotel. We're trying to figure out some room blocks and see if they can give us a discount for it. And if it goes well, hopefully I'll plan more trips. But that's been really fun to take my event planning experience from Fun on Weekdays and put it towards planning a brand trip for Waterboy, since they have the budget to do it. I would love to plan a brand trip for Fun on Weekdays, but I don't even sell a product. So I don't have the budget to just plan a brand trip to get people to join my Facebook page. Like, it just doesn't make sense financially. But who knows, maybe one day. So then after that, we have a week in between, and then we're going to one of his other friends' weddings in Florida. And then we're going straight from Florida to Michigan to his family's house up north for 4th of July. July? What did I just say? 4th of July. It's just one of those days that every single word I say, I'm like, is that how you pronounce that? You're chewing on your words. But we're going to Michigan for 4th of July. We'll probably be there for like 10 days or something. We usually stay for a while. And then we come back, and I actually don't know anything that's happening in July, but I know that I'm sure we'll be doing something. So for the next 2 months, I'm going to be so busy anyways that it's like once you fall behind on a recording schedule, it is so hard to get caught back up. And sometimes I've gone like 2 or 3 weeks without posting a podcast episode, and then I'll just come back. I'm like, surprise, I'm still here. So I've really struggled with the consistency of recording as well. And a lot of times it just kind of stresses me out. I don't think that I'm that good at it, to be honest. So basically, in a nutshell, that is why this will be my last episode of the podcast. Until next time, I'm sure I'll guest on other people's podcasts. I love being a guest. Oh, there's no pressure. You just get to yap uncontrollably about whatever they ask you about. I love doing that. So if you want me to be on your podcast, I have some flexibility now. But I just wanted to end this episode with a huge thank you to any brand that has ever sponsored this podcast and believed in the words that I'm saying, or the people who have listened week over week, or the people who have joined my page or have supported me in any sort of way. Like, this has been such a fun, amazing chapter. I cannot imagine my life without this podcast, because it just started a wildfire of incredible things, meeting incredible people, doing amazing things for charities. And like, I just would not be able to touch as many lives as I know that I have without Fun on Weekdays. And I'm so grateful for it. Maybe eventually it'll come back, but I feel like for right now, it's just not the right thing for me. And I don't know why this took a deep turn. Like, I don't need to make this is like a 30-minute apology video on YouTube for like explaining things that people probably don't really care that much about. But I know there might be some people who do care. So if you listen to this episode, thank you so much. And I love you guys. You can keep in touch with everything that we're doing on our Facebook page, which is Fun on Weekdays. And then all the other subgroups are linked within there. They're also linked on our Instagram page, which is Fun on Weekdays. We do have a weekly newsletter. I'm trying to decide if we're going to continue to do that, because the goal of the newsletter every week was to kind of share like the new podcast episode as well as fun things to do or any sort of blog post, anything I wanted to share with you guys. So I'm going to workshop that a little bit and see if that still makes sense to continue doing. But Fun on Weekdays isn't going anywhere. If anything, I think it's going to continue to grow because now I have the time to put towards things that I'm way more passionate about. So that's all I wanted to share today, you guys. Thank you so much for listening. It feels so weird to not say talk to you next Tuesday, but I'll talk to you the next time I talk to you. Bye.